Peace be to you all. Assalamu alaikum. Omar here. So just finished up a 5K Friday. So happy Friday to you guys. Juma Mubarak. Wanted to talk to you guys briefly about these mass shootings and mental health. I work as a clinician. I'm a physician associate and health educator. So I've been doing these things for, more than 2 decades now. So I've worked with a lot of people who have mental health issues. And it's, what we call mental health issues is a very broad spectrum of issues, everything from personality disorders to actual organic things that affect the brain, whether it's Alzheimer's or things that are genetic, trisomy 21, otherwise known as Down syndrome. All of these things go under this vast umbrella called mental health, or you could say in layman's terms, mental health issues. So back when I was in school, I took a course called Adult Psychopathology. This was a long, long time ago. And we used something called the DSM-3, Diagnostic Systems Manual. Back then it was DSM-3. It's now the DSM-5 that's been out for a few years now. And you see, if you compare the two, that's more than a 20-year gap there. There's things that were considered mental health disorders that were taken out. Some would argue for political correctness. That's not the point of this video. Other things that have been added in, some would argue for political correctness. Again, that's not the point of this video. But I think that there's something going on here with these mass shootings. There were killings this morning and yesterday, right after the Walmart shooting, in which 6 people were killed by a disgruntled employee. That hit home with me. My daughter used to work for Walmart. Yeah, it could have been her. I mean, this was the Walmart in Virginia, and I was trying to research the killings with this guy who killed his classmates who were on the football team at UVA. So I typed in Virginia killings, and I saw, wait a minute, this is Walmart. This is another killing? Then there was, of course, the mass shooting at the LGBTQ plus nightclub. And there seems to be no end to it. And I despise the way this issue is politicized, because on one hand, you've got groups saying, well, if everybody had a gun, they could defend themselves and these things wouldn't happen. And you've got another group saying, well, if nobody had a gun, then these things wouldn't happen. Now, I live in D.C., which is a democratically run city. That's neither here nor there, because we have some of the most restrictive gun laws, and yet one of the highest rates of homicide, gun-related homicide in the country, in comparison to our population. We actually have a burgeoning population of homelessness, much of which is populated by people with mental health issues. So I don't know. It's a multi-variable issue, but they're intertwined with these mass shootings and mental health. I was talking to somebody who taught forensics at not the debate forensics, but actually forensics pathology, and forensics trying to find out who committed a particular crime. And we're talking about the concept of forensic psychiatry, and trying to determine if a person is competent to stand trial. Were they mentally competent when they committed a crime and therefore culpable? You were saying it was hard to prove. But, that's one of the questions when we have these mass shootings. The first question is, well, what was the person's issue? This Walmart mass shooting, there's apparently a manifesto that the shooter left. People are saying, well, he had issues, i.e. probably mental health issues. I've treated many people over the years who have been horribly abused growing up. They sought to assuage the damage of that abuse with self-medications, so illicit drugs, whether it was crack cocaine or alcohol. And then people like myself write them prescriptions or try to refer them to psychiatry, where they get maybe more prescriptions. And some of the folks have told me, well, those didn't work for me, so I stopped taking them, or they made me worse than I actually was before. Very few of them have acted out violently, especially on the level of a mass shooting. But I've come to understand that with men in particular, it's not uncommon for a lot of the pain that they've suffered in childhood or even in their young adulthood to be enacted violently. And you can call it toxic masculinity. That's a term that's thrown around a lot, and maybe I'm using it out of context. But I think we've got a real problem, in particular among our men, our young men in particular, in how they enact the pain and suffering that they're experiencing, and how they unleash that anger and pain upon those around them. It's not too many women that have engaged in mass shooting, so this is something that seems to be fairly unique to men. I don't know what to do about it. I've tried to be the best clinician that I can. I'm not trained specifically in psychiatry as a physician associate. We work under the supervision of a licensed medical doctor, so I've worked with psychiatrists. I've also worked with psychologists and mental health counselors and peer counselors. Ultimately, I believe that in many cases, if not most, a person decides to do what they're going to do. And you see these guys that leave diaries and manifestos. They understand the ramifications of their violent actions. A lot of them don't want to face it, so they commit suicide. I don't know what to do anymore. I've been covering this topic for the past several years since I've been on YouTube. I've tried to do what I can, working with youth groups. I grew up here in D.C., so the area has gone some gentrification. So that we don't have quite the violence that we've seen in the past in certain areas. And my wife is from South Central LA, and that was apparently run by the Crips. So she couldn't wear red growing up. It's I don't see any end in sight. So I'm kind of at a loss for words. There's no panacea for this, but I believe that mental health and the type of violence that we're seeing are intricately intertwined. If you're like me and you're part of the aging Generation Xers and you're in your mid-50s and approaching 60, you probably grew up on Hawaii Five-0 and Dirty Harry and reruns of Gunsmoke, The Lone Ranger, and things like that. So you saw shows where people are shooting at each other, and we had probably more lax gun laws back then. I remember there was a place called Kmart before Walmart came along, and you could go to Kmart and get a gun. I spent a good part of my childhood in Southern Maryland. My dad had a gun. Lots of people had guns, but I don't remember any mass shootings back in the 70s, 80s, and maybe I think Columbine was probably in the early 90s, if I'm not mistaken. But the way it is now, it's every other week, and unfortunately we're going to probably end the year and start the year with another mass shooting. I don't know if you guys have any suggestions. I'm open to them. I don't know if they can be stopped. But I wish you guys the best of success in your positive endeavors. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving feast. That's a unique American holiday. Be well and be safe. Take care. If you have an interest in becoming a PA like me, you can feel free to reach out to me. Take care. Peace.